this right. Pro wrestler Ricky Starks just pulled a move that you don't see every day. And we've got articles, fans online are going nuts. It's a whole thing.
No, it's definitely causing a stir, that's for sure.
No kidding. The guy gets released from AEW and then, like, bam, he shows up in WWE NXT the very next day. I mean, come on. How often do you see someone jump ship like that? Especially someone like Starks, who was, kind of a big deal over in AEW.
Yeah, it's really unusual to see a wrestler move between companies that quickly. I mean, you'd have to go back to, like, the Monday Night Wars back in the late 90s to find that kind of energy around talent switching sides.
And even back then, you usually had those non-compete clauses, right? Wrestlers had to sit on the sidelines for months. But Starks,
he's ready to go.
Just like that. It's crazy.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole thing so interesting. Usually, a wrestler will, like, wait out their contract, maybe drop some hints on social media, tease the fans a little. But here, total surprise, out of nowhere.
It's like he teleported or something. And you know what really got people talking? That line he dropped in his NXT promo, hottest free agent. Come on, that's got to get fans buzzing.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, imagine if your favorite, I don't know, baseball player suddenly switched teams in the middle of the season. You'd be shocked, right? Curious how they'll fit in with the new team. Maybe even excited for some new matchups, new rivalries.
No wonder people are losing their minds online. Everyone's trying to figure out, like, what does this mean for Starks, for WWE, for AEW? It's like we all got handed a piece of a puzzle,
Well, let's see if we can put some of those pieces together. Right. So first things first, the article you sent, watch. Ricky Starks' shock arrival in WWE a day after AEW release. That lays out a pretty wild timeline.
It does, and I gotta admit, even I was kind of confused about the details. Like, Starks' AEW contract got extended, then he wasn't on TV much, and then boom, released. Was there something going on behind the scenes, do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, but it definitely raises some questions. It reminds me a little of when Givat Paz's, what was his name? The wrestler who had a similar thing with his contract a few years back.
I think I know who you mean, yeah.
Right. It's like AEW knew something was up, but they weren't quite ready to go all in on him either.
So what do you think? Planned move, or did Starks just decide to bet on himself in a new environment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Some fans are saying this could be a coordinated thing between AEW and WWE, to generate buzz, get people talking, maybe even do some cross-promotion. It's not totally unheard of, though it would be a pretty bold strategy, I gotta say.
It would be wild. Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Two rival companies working together.
Exactly. But then again, maybe Starks just saw a bigger opportunity with WWE. Maybe he wants a different style, a fresh start, or even just a chance to prove himself on a larger stage.
And let's be real. WWE does have that history, right? Taking talent from other companies and turning them into, like, superstars. I mean, look at Paz as well, I'm sure everyone can think of a few examples. So maybe Starks sees himself following a similar path.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
But there's also the chance that, that this is a sign of a bigger shift happening in wrestling. For a long time, WWE was the place to be. But now, with AEW gaining momentum, wrestlers have more options, more leverage.
So this could be like, what, like a free agency frenzy, but for pro wrestlers, more power to them, I say.
Exactly. And that's why this is so fascinating for fans, right? Yeah. It's not just about one wrestler changing companies. It's potentially about, the whole industry evolving, the power dynamic shifting. Who knows where it'll all lead?
Okay, so we've got potential power shift, a mysterious contract situation, and a whole lot of speculation. But what about you? What's your take on all this? Is Starks making a smart move?
It's still early, but one thing's for sure. WWE's got a lot to think about now, a lot to consider.
You're right. This is where it gets really interesting.
They got to figure out how to use him right, Can't just squash what made him so popular in AEW.
You mean like his whole vibe, the absolute thing he had going on? Yeah, I wonder if that'd work in WWE.
Exactly. I mean, there's a risk they could try to, fit him into one of their existing molds, kind of like they've done with other indie guys in the past.
Oh, man. I can just picture it now, stuck in some goofy gimmick, wearing a ridiculous costume.
Yeah. It'd be a shame to see him lose that edge. He's built a connection with fans by being himself. WWE needs to get that.
Plus, they can't afford to just bring him in with all this hype and then, like, let him fade into the background, right? Remember what happened with, well, I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about.
Right. WWE has to capitalize on this momentum, give him the space to show what he can do.
Otherwise, it'll look like they don't know what to do with a talent like Starks.
And that just plays into the whole AEW is the more exciting
Yeah.
company thing, you know.
Yeah, they got to be careful not to hand AEW a win here. This is big.
It's a balancing act, for sure. Build anticipation, but also deliver on the promise.
Speaking of opportunities, did you notice they didn't have him confirm anything about Vengeance Day during his NXT debut?
Oh, yeah. Classic wrestling move, right? Keep things open-ended, the fans keep guessing.
Keeps us all on the edge of our seats. And speaking of keeping us guessing, can we talk about that promo?
Oh, man, that promo. That's where things get really interesting.
Every other word felt like it had like a double meaning. Future of wrestling, hottest brand, revolution will be televised.
He's definitely playing with us a little bit, right? I wonder if he was taking some shots at AEW.
That's what I love about wrestling promos. It's like you got to decode them, you know?
He even called NXT the hottest brand in professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that just him playing his role or genuine dig at AEW?
Tony Khan must have been listening to that with a scowl on his face.
Oh, for sure. This is just going to add fuel to that rivalry between AEW and WWE.
Good for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Competition keeps things interesting.
Absolutely. Pushes everyone to be better.
It's like the Monday Night Wars all over again, but like online this time, playing out in these little jabs. It's wild.
And it reminds us that wrestling isn't just what happens in the ring, it's the stories outside the ring, too.
The drama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where do you see this going? What should fans be paying attention to?
Okay, so first, how does WWE use him? Who are his rivals going to be?
How do they handle his character? Does he keep the absolute persona?
Right. Who do you think he'd have good chemistry with? I'm already thinking up dream matches.
And don't forget, we got to see how AEW responds. They're not going to just sit back and take this.
They'll have something up their sleeve, maybe sign a big free agent themselves, or like really lean into their storylines to steal back the spotlight.
And the promos. Keep an ear out for those subtle digs. This is just the beginning.
So it's not just about Starks, right? It's about what this all means for the bigger picture.
Exactly. One little move can have ripple effects. We're watching wrestling history unfold.
You know what? I'm officially hooked. I need to know what happens next.
Me too. These are the moments that really make wrestling fun. You just never know.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The promo, what this means for WWE, AEW, even a potential new wrestling war.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one thing I'm still hung up on. That no non-compete thing. I still can't believe he was able to just like switch sides so fast.
Yeah, that was definitely a head-scratcher.
Makes you think about those wrestling contracts, how they're changing.
Right. I mean, back in the day, non-competes, those were like ironclad, you know?
Like you were stuck. Didn't matter what you wanted.
Exactly. It was all about protecting the companies,
Yeah.
controlling the talent.
But now things seem different.
Yeah, you see more and more wrestlers negotiating those non-competes down or even getting rid of them completely.
So are we heading towards a future where wrestlers can just like bounce around between companies whenever they want?
It's possible. And you know what? I think it would be a good thing for everyone.
Really?
Yeah. More competition, more variety for the fans.
I imagine the dream matches we could get. The possibilities are endless.
Exactly. And it gives the wrestlers more control over their careers.
So Stark's leaving. This could be the start of a whole new era.
Maybe. Definitely something to watch. This could change the whole wrestling landscape.
Wow. And to think, it all started with one guy showing up on NXT.
Wrestling, man. You never know what's going to happen next.
That's why we love it, right?
Absolutely. Never a dull moment.
Okay, before we wrap up, gotta ask. What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this? The Ricky Starks saga. Big takeaway.
I'd say, remember this. Pro wrestling is always evolving. What's true today might not be true tomorrow.
So be ready for anything.
Exactly. Keep your eyes open, expect the unexpected, and don't be afraid to question, well, everything you think you know about wrestling.
Great advice. And on that note, I think that's a wrap for this deep dive into the Ricky Starks story. It's been a wild one.
Definitely one for the history books.
And to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the crazy world of pro wrestling. Until then, stay tuned and keep those eyes peeled for the next big shocker. Who knows what's coming next?